Hello and welcome to another battle report for Infinity the Game. Today we are playing Corregidor Jurisdictional Command against US Ariadna, and as you can hear in the background, for those of you who are new to this, I am usually recording these while I'm walking my dog and my kid, so you might hear the occasional sounds in the background, as well as me being slightly out of breath because I am pushing a stroller. But as I was saying, we are playing Corregidor against US Ariadna, and the mission today is the Bromed Academy mission engineering deck. I have never played Corregidor in N5 before. This is my first game with them, and as such, this will be a wonderful showcase of what happens if a mediocre player like me plays a faction for the first time in a long time, which means a lot of mistakes were made. We are playing against Andy again, for those of you who have watched previous battle reports here and maybe know him. He's our local Ariadna player who has become really good at playing Ariadna and has translated all of his skills that he learned for TAC into US Ariadna, and that will also show today. We are basically playing the models that I have, except for one proxy. I have come to not enjoy proxying as much as I did in the past. I usually try to put on the table as many original models as possible, but I haven't painted up a bandit yet, and I really wanted to play a bandit. Ever since they got their rework, I wanted to try out the mine layer deployable repeater loadout and see how the whole infiltration reroll works in combination with those other things. Apart from that, this list, like I said, comprises mostly the models that I have, which means that in Group 1, we have a Horus of a Mobile Brigada Lieutenant with multi-rifle and Tinbot -6, a Wildcat Hacker, and Jazz, which basically is my standard hacking setup for Corregidor, because the Wildcat Hacker has combat instinct, which means I can hack even if pieces have sixth sense, and Jazz is Jazz. She is in every Corregidor list. The Mobile Brigada is basically just there to give them a Tinbot, and because, in my opinion, in N5, he's kind of the best lieutenant that you have, especially if you are as SWC constrained as I am in this list, trying to fit one gun and a vertical zond. Because the Alguacil costs SWC and the Wildcat is really bad. So at least this guy is kind of hacking resistant, plus he is kind of overall resistant and can do some stuff in the active turn with his lieutenant order as well. And as we will see when we talk about the mission, decent lieutenant is especially valuable in a mission like engineering deck. Apart from that, in this group we have the usual stuff: 2 Morans, like I said, the Bandit, 2 Transductor Zons, because I didn't have the points for Jaguars, and also I haven't painted up 2 Jaguars yet. We have the Tomcat Doctor, we have a Stempler Zond with tactical awareness. Yes, and that's Group 1. And in Group 2, we have the Intruder with HMG, McMurrow for smoke, the Vertigo Zond, a Zalyut Zond Evo Hacker, because I had the points in SWC for that, and the Raven Eye Officer with EM Mines. Basically, the idea of this list is, let's see if I can make the Bandit work. I also wanted to have both Morans. I'm not sure if that's actually necessary. In this game, it was what it was, and have some smoke shooting together with McMurrow. And apart from the usual hacking setup, I chose the Tomcat Doctor instead of the Hellcat Hacker or Hellcat Paramedic. Basically, A, because I didn't have the points. B, I thought I didn't have the points because I thought I really wanted the Zalyut Evo Hacker to put marksmanship, for example, on my forward observer bot, which, also spoiler alert, never happened. But if I would rework this list, I would definitely try to fit in the Jaguars just for some redundancy on the smoke, in case of McMurrow going down, to actually have some arrows, because this list has no long-range arrows at all. And probably downgrade the Zolyute as well to just the standard 8-point stuff, because if you don't bring a Hellcat, I don't really think you need an Evo Hacker. There's also an argument to be made if you need the Vertigo Zond. Also a little bit of a spoiler, in this game, the whole guided thing would not perform as well. And it's the first time I'm playing guided in N5 as well, so I'm not sure if this is just an isolated case of me rolling bad dice or my opponent rolling very good dice, or if it actually makes more sense to put in another actual gun instead of guided. I guess I have to play more games to see how it averages out, but so far, not sure about it. We'll see that and how that plays out. Andy today is playing a very different list from the list he played last time against me. He painted up some beautiful Marauders, and so he's playing some beautiful Marauders. We have in the first combat group, this time the Blackjack APHMG. Otherwise, it's the same Horus that he usually plays with Rosie, Chain of Command, and a Doctor, a 1-1-2. And then there's the Marauder Sniper the Marauder Heavy Rocket Launcher in a duo with Marauder Paramedic. Then we have 4 Foxtrots, we have a Devil Dog, and we have 2 forward deploying Grunts. The Foxtrots spread themselves over 2 groups, 1 in the first, 3 in the second. And the other stuff in the second group is another Marauder duo, this time the Sniper, with a Marauder Lieutenant. And finally, this time we have the Beast Hunter, the Ariadna specific loadout. Andy told me from his last game, the things he felt he was missing were those kind of aggressive pieces that you can just throw forward and sacrifice and do some really terrifying stuff with. He has become quite proficient at using the dogs in Ariadna, be it a Dog Warrior in Tak, or in this case a Devil Dog, as well as the Beast Hunter. He's really good with him as well, and Ariadna just profits from these fast, super jumping units that can land in your deployment zone on turn 1 pretty quickly and just get some really evil line of sights with their super jump, which, again, a spoiler, will happen in this game as well. All right, engineering deck. For those of you who don't know the Bromid Academy mission system, you can find it in the Comlog app if you go to the main menu. And the guys from Bromid Academy created some amazing missions, in my opinion. And engineering deck is one of them. The way engineering deck works is you have 4 consoles in each quadrant of the table. You have an objective room in the middle, and in the middle of the objective room, a 5th console. And the scoring basically works as this. You get a point for every single console that you activate, and you get 2 points if you activate the console in the objective room in your first turn. But the twist, you can only activate the console in the objective room with the Lieutenant or Chain of Command model. And finally, you also get points for dominating as well as subjugating the objective room at the end of the game, which leads to a mission that has a really nice balance of first player advantage as well as second player advantage. The first player has the chance, if he's able to go into the objective room and press the button with their lieutenant first turn, get 2 points, and you cannot take those 2 points away. In general, you cannot take any console points away. Every console that you activate can be activated by the opponent, and both people get the points. And basically the deciding points are who dominates the objective room in the end, which is the second player advantage, who gets the chance to make another 2 points there, because you get a point for dominating it, meaning you have more victory points in the room, as well as a point for subjugating it, which means there are no enemy models surviving in the objective room. So 2 points the first player can make in their first turn, 2 points the second player can make in their last turn, and in between you're trying to push buttons and annihilate the opponent of you, of course. I really loved it. Andy loved it too. I think I'm going to play it more often. I really like this kind of mission where you're not able to take points away from the opponent, where it isn't like, for example, uplink center or those kind of missions or supplies, where basically it's a winner take all mission and any point you make is a point your opponent doesn't make, which means you can have a really, really close game, but in the end, 1 or 2 orders can result in a 10-1 or a 10-0 win, which in my opinion reflects really poorly how a game works or went. And I really like those missions where any effort any of the 2 players is making actually results in points for the player. And then you have a couple of points that determine who wins. Anyway, so much about the mission. We rolled off. Andy won the lieutenant role, and he decided to take deployment and let me go first. And I deployed on the left side on the table. He deployed on the right. And the way I deployed, and we can see already the first of a couple of mistakes being made here, is my lieutenant with the 2 hackers was in the middle of my deployment zone, and especially my mobile brigada was pretty far back, watching the table edges against Van Zandt. Now, this is not a bad thing, but in placing him there, I forgot that I would want to make a first turn run into the objective room to get those 2 points. And so instead, he should have been deployed as far forward as possible. The 2 hackers were on the roofs, prone, just to keep them safe. But also in this case, Jazz was facing in a way that she could be shot in the back from, for example, something like a super jumping devil dog. I was also deploying her to basically watch the approach to her building against Van Zandt. But that's the thing, Van Zandt isn't in every list. I was actually, for the entire game, convinced Van Zandt was coming. I was making jokes about it, and Andy was a good sport and was playing along, even though I didn't know that, but he of course knew there was no Van Zandt. But yeah, that will become relevant later in the game. And then McMurrow was to the left, behind that little dome building with the 4 pieces of cover, and next to him was my guided missile bot, just watching that back line off the table. The intruder was deployed on the building on the very top of the table, prone, so he could stand up and get line of sight to what I assumed would be the longest fire lanes, because otherwise you have an objective room in the middle who is infinite height, and the kind of long range shots you can take on a table like this are limited. Behind him was the Evo hacker, which only now I realized was also badly placed, because the baggage from him would never reach Jazz if I had decided to throw pictures with her. And apart from any Evo hacking programs I could have activated, this was basically her job. But so be it. My flashpulse bots were guarding the corners, as well as the Raven Eye on the bottom of the table, watching another side of my deployment zone. Basically, there was no spot for Van Zandt to land on, which is really sad. I put so much effort into securing my deployment zone, and there was no Van Zandt. Well, apart from that, we have the forward observer bot. He was on the bottom next to the intruder on the top of the table. The 2 Morans. Yes, the 2 Morans. 2 more mistakes. No, 1 more mistake. One was forward deployed on the bottom of the table. So if I had the orders, he could basically run out to the first objective on the bottom and boop the button. Yeah, one more thing about engineering deck. You are not rolling whip rolls for activating the consoles. You have to spend entire orders, which in one way is more reliable, but you have to keep that in mind for how you move, because you cannot, for example, just do a short skill, touch the console, and then try to activate it. You have to spend 2 orders, one to move towards it, and then an entire order to boop it. You cannot fail, but still, you will spend 2 orders for every console You have to keep that in mind. And the other Moran was deployed next to the objective room. I was apparently not really thinking about this because I placed him there thinking, cool, I can throw smoke or white noise in there, and then the Moran can go into the objective room and press the button, completely forgetting that this was not his job. This was my Mobile Brigada Lieutenant's job, and the Moran should have been deployed somewhere else where he could either defend the approach to my deployment zone or possibly press a button. Basically, my plan for the buttons was the bottom one would have been done by the Moran, the top one would have been done by my forward observer bot, who I placed in a way that he could, in one order, just move up to the console. Andy very proficiently countered that by basically placing his marauders on the side where my intruder was, which meant that any smoke shooting I wanted to do with him would be thwarted by their MSV-1. And he put his blackjack on the bottom table where my intruder could not see and would basically have to trek across my entire deployment zone in order to get a line of sight. And since McMurrow was deployed to throw smoke where the intruder was, both of them were kind of on the wrong side of the table. He then just threw around all his combo markers in the midfield. His Devil Dog was his reserve. Now, my reserve was, of course, the Bandit. I wanted to see where he put his stuff, and after I saw that my intruder would not be able to shoot at the blackjack, I decided that I wanted to try to kill him with the Bandit. So the Bandit rolls for infiltration. He rolls on a 10, and I roll a 17. And Andy's like, phew, and then I'm like, he has reroll, which he didn't know. And he's like, must be nice. So I re-roll, I roll a 6, and I do the infiltration roll. So already the re-roll showed its worth in this case. I then put the repeater as far as possible from the Bandit up on a building where it would be kind of safe and would also be in range of a forward deploying grunt that was guarding the objective room, in order to, if I had the orders, spotlight and then missile him. And after Andy saw that, he decided that his Devil Dog had to protect his blackjack, and the Devil Dog and his K9 basically just went right next to the blackjack, looking at my Bandit. Then we started. Andy took 2s from my first group. I first started, of course, with my impetuous orders. I moved up McMurrow, and he threw smoke on the upper objective. And for everyone who's paying attention, this is also stupid, because the upper objective is guarded by a Marauder sniper with MSV-1. There's absolutely no use in throwing smoke there. But that's what I did. After I realized that it was kind of useless, I knew that I also had to throw smoke inside the objective room so my Mobile Brigada could make its run. And so he spent his irregular order and one more order to throw more smoke, one into the objective room and the other to block line of sight to the blackjack. Then I decided, let's go, it's Bandit time. The Bandit activates, moves into CC with the blackjack. The antipode dodges the Devil Dog because Andy, being a smart player, put the antipode prone so that the Devil Dog can shoot its template over the K9 into my Bandit, and the blackjack just declares CC. Now, Bandits are not bad in CC. They are CC 22 with martial arts level 2 and a double action CC weapon PS6, which, can do work. And I actually crit, and Andy makes 3 saves. He is saving on 11s, but I was really hoping to put at least 1 wound on him, but that doesn't happen. The blackjack comes out of it unscathed, and I, of course, fail my saving roll, and the Bandit goes unconscious. So, none of that worked. Crap. I then start the run with the Mobile Brigada, and he runs into the objective room and boops the console, and only after he does that, Andy is like, I have a mine there that would have gone off. And he would have also had an arrow with his Marauder sniper into the objective room, which we both forgot. Which is fair, but I realized that now if I want to move out again, which I have to do, I don't want to leave my Mobile Brigada in the room in the first turn, I will have to take a lot of shots that I don't want to. So I instead activate my intruder in group 2, and he stands up and moves up to the building so he gets line of sight to the Marauder. In this case, it's the heavy rocket launcher that's looking into the room. And we have a shootout. And it takes all of my remaining group 2 orders to put the Marauder down. He elects to keep him dogged and to keep him standing. And so it takes me too many orders. And my order pool in group 2 is depleted, which is bad because I left McMurrow standing in a spot where he's relatively safe, but not completely safe against the blackjack. The intruder is prone at the end, and at least the Marauder heavy rocket launcher is down. And my Mobile Brigada says I'm going to tank the mine and moves out of the objective room again into my deployment zone. He does in fact tank the mine. I leave him standing basically where he started, prone on the bottom of the stairs of a building in my deployment zone. That is all I can achieve. I have not pressed any of the consoles next to my deployment zone, and I only killed one model. And that is bad. I would have liked to have this turn more efficient, but part of the reason why it isn't is due to my bad deployment. I have to spend more orders on the Mobile Brigada moving into the objective room than necessary if he had deployed further up. And my Moran maybe would have been able to do other stuff as well if he hadn't been uselessly hanging out right next to the objective room. So, with basically his entire order pool intact, Andy elects to first activate his Blackjack Horus, move the Blackjack up, get line of sight to McMurrow, and put him in the dirt with one order. Yes, I am armor 4, yes, I have 2 wounds, but an AP HMG, well, I ignore the AP, but he still hits me with 4 shots, I have no cover, and I fail, I think, all 4 saving rolls. And McMurrow is dead, which is also bad because that was my only source of smoke, and my intruder has to forfeit any smoke shooting he would want to do otherwise. Andy then moves up his Devil Dogs. He actually uses the Impetuous order first just to move them up. Now he uses the irregular order to move them up even further. The Antipode gets line of sight to my Moran. I'm not exactly sure what happens there. I think he takes a shot. I do know that he actually gets in zone of control of the Crazy Koala, and the Crazy Koala snuffs him. He then spends another order shooting the Moran in the back with the Devil Dog, but this time I luckily make my save, and I just basically turn around to face the Devil Dog. He then leaves the Devil Dog where he is, and he starts moving his Beast Hunter, who's on the bottom of the board, down the building. I have no arrows. And the Beast Hunter comes around behind my other Moran, ignores him for the time being though, moves behind him and into line of sight of my Raven Eye. He does, because he's in zone of control of the Moran, gets spotlight attacks from my 2 hackers. But he actually makes both of his armor saves and is not spotlight at the end of this order. And he shoots at my Raven Eye, and after some deliberation, I just decide to sacrifice the Raven Eye and lay another EM mine because my other EM mine is out of range. Also, incredibly, at this point, the Raven Eye survives. And so the Beast Hunter activates one more time and moves back to get line of sight to the Moran as well. He's shooting him in the back. And then he splits burst. He puts with his burst 3 heavy pistol, he puts another 2 burst into the Raven Eye. He puts 1 burst into the Moran. The EM mine goes off. My spotlight goes off again. This time, he gets isolated from the EM mine. He gets spotlit, but he puts the Raven Eye unconscious. The Raven Eye, luckily, is shock immune. The Moran is not, and the Moran goes off the board completely. And that is pretty much his entire first turn. The only other thing he does is move one of his Foxtrots into base-to-base with one of the consoles and activates that. He also moves up his Link team with the Blackjack a little bit further and with Rosie Monroe activates the other consoles. So at this point, the score is 3-2. I have pressed one console. I have also pressed the console in the objective room in my first turn. That gives me 2 points. And Andy has pressed 2 consoles. So we're at 3-2. I, however, have lost a lot of pieces. Actually, I have lost even more, because what I forgot is that Andy still had enough orders to do a run with his Devil Dog and get a super jump shot with his heavy pistol into both the Wildcat and Jazz. The Wildcat sees him, so the Wildcat does a face-to-face. Jazz, as I said in the beginning, was facing in a way where she could be shot in the back by something like that, and that happens. Jazz dies, the Wildcat survives, the Devil Dog gets arrows from my Intruder and my Moran as well, and goes unconscious. At least that happens. I now am already quite low on orders in my second turn, and I haven't pressed any consoles yet, and there is basically most of Andy's stuff still surviving. I have, however, spotlit 2 units. Now remembering that I forgot another thing that happened in the first turn, Andy took another Foxtrot that was on the same building as the repeater, just behind a corner. She stands up and looks at the repeater and shoots it off the board. He did that before he moved the link team, just so the link team could move freely. The Foxtrot got targeted as well doing that, which now means there are 2 models that I can use my guided missile. My second group is just the Intruder, the Missile Bot, and the Zolute. So I move the Intruder into group 1, which means I have 2 orders to guide it. And my hope is, of course, to spend 1 order on the Beast Hunter to kill him and 1 order on the Foxtrot to kill her. However, my first guided missile lands on the Beast Hunter, and the Beast Hunter makes all 3 saves. Which is getting frustrating with these armor saves. So I have to spend the second order on the Beast Hunter as well. This time it kills him, but that means I cannot guided missile the Foxtrot. That's fine. My first group, what it can do is use the Intruder to take shots against his other Marauder and ARO, because I still need to get clear of those arrows into the objective room, and so I do that. However, in this case, Armor 3 in cover against a standard HMG results in this Marauder saving on 11s. And that results, together with his MSV ignoring my mimetism, in my Intruder basically needing almost every order in my first combat group to put down the Marauder sniper. And then realizing with my, I think, second to last order that I would also be able to get line of sight to his other Marauder on the roof, which was his lieutenant, but I didn't know that. Take a shot at him as well. I get 2 shots through, and the Marauder makes another 2 armor saves. Well, I leave the Intruder prone again on the bridge outside of my deployment zone, and I have 2 orders left. 1 regular, 1 tactical from the forward observer bot, and 1 lieutenant order from my mobile brigada. And I look at my mobile brigada and I'm thinking, he is facing in a way where if Van Zandt would be coming in now, he could shoot the mobile brigada in the back. So I spend an order on the mobile brigada to just turn him around so he's safe. And for those of you who know Corregidor better than me, you are now going, what the hell is he doing? Mobile brigadas have 360 visors, which I forgot, of course, which would have meant that I could have spent the lieutenant order putting the mobile brigada in suppressive fire, which would have been much better. Since my link was broken anyway, Jazz was the link leader, Jazz was dead, and there at this point wasn't really any sense in restoring the link. But yeah, so I did that, and then I spent the tactical order on my forward observer bot to put him in suppression fire, which made at least some sense, also protecting my deployment zone. Which was also unfortunate because, like I said, there was no Van Zandt, and this would be relevant in Andy's second turn. The last thing I do in my second turn is I actually decide to bring in the Tomcat right next to the Bandit. She is in cover from everything. She cannot be seen by the Blackjack, and she just peeks around the corner to fire a medikit at the Bandit succeeds. The bandit also succeeds on a 12, and I have her standing again. That works, that is nice. It's basically just something that Andy now has to deal with in his second turn. But at first, he just decides not to. Instead, he activates his forward deploying grunt on the top of the table, who, now that all of my arrows, or well, none of my arrows, are still there, can move freely. He moves down the building, and if I had known that there was no Van Zandt, and if I had turned my forward observer bot slightly around, it would have had line of fire to where the grunt was coming down the stairs with suppressive fire, and that whole play would have not been possible. But instead, I didn't do that. He could move freely. He walks down the stairs. He walks up the stairs to the building where my intruder is on, and after a couple orders, he puts the intruder in the dirt. He then moves up the bridge, takes shots against my forward observer bot and my Zalute. Both of them, however, make their saves, and at this point, he decides to just let him be there, prone on the bridge, and move his Blackjack Horus further up his deployment zone so they would get in reach of the objective room. While the grunt, the forward deployment grunt, is walking around, by the way, he obviously gets more spotlights. But again, Andy is really good rolling 4s and 5s and 3s, and just half of my spotlights never get through in the entire game. And so at the end of the turn, that particular grunt is still unspotlit. Andy also remembers at some point that my bandit is still alive. So he very casually takes his APHMG Blackjack, who is inside of 16 inches, and moves him back to get better ranges on him. I think that the bandit declares a dodge. He fails, but he makes his save, and I guts behind the building where the bandit was standing. And he briefly thinks about trying to get line of sight to him with his remaining Foxtrot on the roof, but that would risk an arrow of my surviving Moran. So instead, he just moves his link team further up towards the objective room so that he is poised for his third turn to have Rosie and the doctor run around to get more objectives. The other thing that happens in Andy's second turn is that he takes another camouflage marker, walks him through the objective room towards my Mobile Brigada and my Wildcat Hacker. At this point, I finally remember that my Mobile Brigada has a 360 visor, which is the point at which I also remember that, hey, I could have put him in suppressive fire instead of wasting an order turning him around. Well, at least now, even though he's standing towards this camouflage marker with his back, I am able to make a discover roll. Turns out to be another Foxtrot. The Foxtrot then decides to walk up the stairs, split burst between my Mobile Brigada and my Wildcat Hacker. But in a lucky turn of events for once, my units survive and the Foxtrot Hacker dies. And that is the end of Andy's second turn. Now I'm going into my third turn with not too many options, actually. I still haven't activated any consoles, and I only have the console in the objective room, which means I have to get some units in the objective room that potentially are able to hold it against the Blackjack and Rosie and a Heavy Flamer Grunt and everything Andy still has, which is a lot. I also have to press as many buttons as I can. The problem is the Blackjack is positioned in a way in the middle of Andy's deployment zone where he has line of fire to the objective on the upper part of the table. The other problem is that between my second Moran and the console on my lower side, there is a camouflage marker sitting at the edge of a building. I decide to start with the Stemplerzand on the upper side. I declare cautious move, which now I'm actually not sure I'm able to do. Are Rems allowed to do cautious move? Probably not. Maybe played that wrong. I do it anyway, and the cautious move allows me to walk behind the console in a way that I end up out of line of sight of the Blackjack, and then I spend an order and activate the console. Great, that's one. I then look at my Moran, and I look at the mine, which is very obviously a mine, and for some reason, I'm thinking, well, I guess I'll just have to tank it. Which is just very far from the truth. I don't just have to tank it. For once, I still have an irregular order on my bandit, who, yes, is only whip 12, but still had line of sight to that particular camouflage marker and would have been able to at least try and declare a discover shoot. If that had failed, I could have still spent an order on my Wildcat hacker, stand her up, try and discover there, and then shoot it. It would have been more order intensive. But she has MSV1. There would have been chances to just shoot it before I make the run. I am not that kind of strategic thinker at this moment, and so I just run the Moran forward, try to dodge, fail to dodge, die to the mine. It's a shot mine, so again, I'm just off the board. I did buy Speedball at the beginning of the game, but I never had the orders or the chance to actually use it. And so the lower console is lost for me. I don't have specialists that can go there apart from my Wildcat hacker, but I don't have the orders for that. I also don't have command tokens to use coordinated orders. I do have a command token to form up the fire team again between the Mobile Brigada and the Wildcat hacker, and so I do that. They move up and try to find an angle to walk into the objective room where I'm not seen by the blackjack, which they do. I do have to contest the heavy flamer infiltrating grunt though, that is guarding the objective room. And because I am playing Corregidor for the first time in a long time, and at this point I also have to admit I'm kinda rattled, I make another mistake, and that is going in with my Mobile Brigada, which is the correct move, eating the flamer and shooting back with my multi-rifle. Which is stupid, because Mobile Brigadas have boarding pistols plus 1 burst. I know that I'm eating a template. I should just put 2 templates back, because as it turns out, I am rolling a 14, a 15, and a 16, which are all fails, and the Flamer Grunt still stands. I, on the other hand, fail all my saves, and the Mobile Brigada goes all the way dead. So now I have a Wildcat hacker, and the Wildcat hacker does have a light flamethrower as well, but that's obviously not the same as a boarding pistol plus 1 burst. So she goes in, she eats the flamer, she also dies, and of course, Andy's Grunt makes a save. So at this point, I tell Andy that the game is over, which it is, but he asks me if we can at least play out his turn. He even offers me to play your outs, as he is quoting Robert Shepard, with which he means I still have a Tomcat Doctor at the edge of his deployment zone. I could try a run at one of his consoles, but she would have to walk through open ground, being seen by the blackjack, and I tell him that is suicide. He's like, just try it. I do it, I get shot by the blackjack, and she dies. So at this point, we finally play out his third turn, because Andy tells me that he wants to practice this kind of, I am in the lead, but because I just assume that I win the game, I make stupid mistakes and I actually lose the game kind of thing. So he wants to get better at that, trying to see what the optimal play is to, if this were a tournament setting, get the maximum amount of points. And after some deliberation, we figure out that the optimal play for him would be to spend an order on the fire team with Rosie and the 112, move them into the objective room in a way that they cannot be seen by, I forgot about this, my missile launcher bot. Because I still have the missile launcher and the Zalyut in my group 2. So one thing I actually try in my third turn is to again missile a unit. I can only missile the Foxtrot that I spotlit in the first turn. I roll a 6 and the Foxtrot rolls a 9. So lose that one. And this is what I mean with guided missile did not perform in this game. And then I have to decide. I either can spend the last order on my Zalyut and put marksmanship on my Stempler Zond, or I can spend the last order on my missile launcher bot, on my Vertigo Zond, and have her just jump over the piece of cover that she is hiding behind, so she can land in a position where she has line of sight into the objective room. Not the entire objective room, but parts of it. And so I like to do that. I'm not sure what would have been the better choice. I don't think it really mattered, as we will see when we come to Andy's third turn. But I decided to do it with the missile bot. So this is something Andy has to consider when moving his troops into the objective room. The Stempler Zond that is having a line of fire into the objective room as well, he just deals with the grunt that he left on the bridge. He just moves and shoots the Stempler in the back and kills her. That means he has mostly free reign. And so what he can do is move Rosie and the 112 into the objective room, boop the console with Rosie. She can do that in 2 orders. Then declare cautious move with the 112 so he can exit the objective room again, not being seen by the missile bot. Then, with his last command token, declare a coordinated order with the 112 and the Foxtrot that activated the first console on his upper side of the table. Move them both up. And then he still has 4 orders, which would be enough to move the Foxtrot into base-to-base with my upper console and the 112 into base-to-base with my lower console and activate them both with an entire order. And that way he would get 5 points for activating all 5 consoles, and he would get the 2 points for dominating and subjugating the objective room, and I would get 4 points for having flipped the console in the objective room and having flipped 2 consoles in general, the one in the objective room and the one on the upper side of my table, which puts the score 7-4, giving Andy a well-deserved win on the back of some really good play on his side and some really terrible play on my side. And this is what I mean with the kind of mistakes you make as a not top player, which I am definitely not, playing a faction for the first time in a long time. Forgetting about skills, forgetting about equipment, forgetting about facing, forgetting about actually your own game plan, which doesn't really have anything to do with the faction, but just with the fact that I didn't really think my game plan through. At the end, just rushing through orders without thinking through what would be the optimal play. And all of those things allowed Andy to just take advantage of my mistakes, together with some, to be honest, pretty amazing armor saves on his side and pretty dismal armor saves on my side. But that doesn't neglect the fact, or that would neglect the fact that most of the stuff had to do with just my mistakes. While Andy, as to my knowledge, didn't make any mistakes. He played everything really well. He was aggressive when he had to be aggressive. He was careful when he had to be careful. He didn't unnecessarily risk any of his pieces. In that way, he was just able to mount up more and more advantages over the course of the game and prove that US Ariadne can definitely hold its own. And you should never underestimate a forward deploying grunt with a heavy flamethrower. Those things are really dangerous. So congratulations to Andy. I hope you enjoyed this. I keep trying to get better at recording these battle reports. I also am trying to get better at taking pictures. I realize that some of them come out blurry and my camera is not really focusing on the right things, but I'm trying to get better at that as well. And obviously, I'm trying to get better at Infinity itself. If you have any comments, if you have any advice, if you found more mistakes that I made, please point them out to me. Tell me what you think. You can also leave your comments about the lists, obviously. And other than that, I hope that I can keep doing these. That means I hope that we will see each other again. And until then, I just wish you all the best. Bye-bye.